Good afternoon, everyone. If anybody is in deep sleep mode after lunch, post-lunch, now this is time to get up because we have very energetic panel discussion focusing on autonomous systems, which is the theme of this conference. To lead the discussion and to moderate the panelists, so I invite Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan. Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan, I'll take privilege to introduce Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan, who is also known as Paddu in the industry circles. So, Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan is a technocrat, having over 40 years of experience wearing multiple hats as entrepreneur, as a technocrat, as an academician, and also as governance and implementing the policies. And during, currently from 2016, Dr. MK is the director of Virginia Tech India Center for Research and Education, which is a not-for-profit organization. And from 2010 to 16, he was involved in several initiatives in education management, including the vice chancellor of a large multidisciplinary education and research university. And a decade before, Paddu founded Plexian Technologies, funded by JP Morgan, and which was later acquired by a large global conglomerate. And prior to 2000, Paddu spent nearly 20 years with ISRO, including a few years in NASA, working on a joint program between India and US, mainly the Indo-US Space Lab. Paddu holds a PhD in aerospace engineering from IISc Bangalore, and he is also a founding member of Skill Training Initiative of Government of India. I think I need to take a break and stop here. Sir, there is a lot more that I should read here. So it's my privilege to invite Dr. Paddu onto the stage. Thank you, sir. Please. Sure. Yeah. With that, I'll hand over to you, sir, to lead the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was an unbelievable, generous and embarrassing introduction. Thank you very much anyway. So this session, as he has mentioned, is the core and heart of our, this today session from SAE, which is on autonomous systems. And we have varied speakers with significant experience here. I would read each one of them and then they could come to the stage to be here. The first one is Mr. C.S. Sharma, who is the Joint Director of Quality Control of India. Mr. C.S. Sharma is serving as a Joint Director and Head of PMU Unmanned Aerial System in Quality Control of India. By qualification, he is an electronics and communication engineer and MBA in finance. He is having more than 22 years of varied experience in third-party certifications and accreditations, total quality management, system and product certification, auditing, lean management, risk management, resource management, business excellence, international cyber laws, best practices, and benchmarking, skill training. Accountability, global reporting initiatives, information security, and skill certification, with an experience of more than 1,500 assessment mandates across India and overseas. Mr. Sharma is a qualified APAC peer evaluator for personal certification program for Asia Pacific region, accreditation bodies, and members of various BIS committees for standard development. He also led the Asia's first accredited certification of educational organizational management system in National Accreditation Board for Education and Training. Presently, he is managing various conformity assessment schemes in QCI, like US, ICMed, RMCPS, Ayush, STAR, hygiene rating schemes, etc. And more importantly, QCI, as you are all aware, is going to be the primary body who will certify drones in India. Welcome, Mr. C.S. Sharma, to the stage. The next, Mr. Sunil Motwani is the country manager of MathWorks. MathWorks, I'm sure all of us are aware, we have been using their software for a significant period of time. He is managing the sales-related activities for commercial customers in India. He has been at MathWorks since 2008, from the time it started operations in India. Prior to joining MathWorks, Sunil worked in Hewlett Packard and Agilent Technologies, managing sales of test instruments for various industry segments in India, including aerospace and defense, communications, semiconductors, automotive, and industrial automation. He has more than 25 years of experience in sales of technology products across various regions within India, having been based at Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, and Bangalore during this time. Sunil has a bachelor's degree in electronics engineering from Vishweshwar National Institute of Technology, Nagpur, and a postgraduate diploma in software technology from National Center of Software Training, Mumbai. May I invite Mr. Sunil Motwani to come to the stage. Please, sir. Dr. Madhusudan Joshi is the Deputy General Manager and Head of Electrical and Electronics, ICAT. Dr. Madhusudan Joshi has received his doctoral degree from Instrument Design and Development Center at IIT Delhi, and he is in the field of cryptology using optoelectronic techniques. He started his career with the Automotive Research Association of India, RI, Pune, in October 2003. He has 17 plus years of work experience with the automotive industry. Dr. Joshi is the head of electronics and electrical group business unit at ICAT. He has worked in R&D projects related to information processing, information security, design and development of intelligent speed adaptation for automotives, anti-glare headlight systems for vehicles and electric vehicles and HEVs. He has published more than 40 plus research papers in international journals, conference and symposium. He has also been a co-applicant in 6 patents and 2 copyrights in different areas of his work. He is an active member of the Standards Committee of ITS, Automotive Lighting and Automotive Air Conditioning, UAVs, Automotive Electronics and AMC. He is the convener of BIS sub-panel related to ITS and electric vehicles. May I invite Dr. Madhusudan Joshi to come on stage, please. Our next panelist is Group Captain Stephen. Group Captain Stephen belongs to the Indian Air Force, is on deputation to Similak DRDO as a technology director for unmanned aerial vehicle technology and airworthiness certification. He holds a postgraduate degree in geoinformatics from Madras University and MPhil in Defense Strategic Studies from Mumbai University. Apart from his various other professional qualifications across 27 years of defense service, for the past 22 years, he has been an UAV pilot, UAV payload operator, and intelligent analyst. He is also a UAV test pilot graduated from Indian Air Force Test Pilot School. He is qualified to fly various UAVs in Indian Air Force and has the distinction of flying the first flight of DRDO Rustum II, now called the Tapas, as an internal pilot over 2 prototypes. He has been deeply associated with various design, development, and flight testing of indigenous UAVs, and also has evolved with experience of certification of medium altitude, long endurance, the male UAV by Semila. May I request Group Captain Stephen to come to the stage, please. Yes, sir. Next is Mr. Vipul Singh. He is the CEO of Aero Unmanned Systems. He is the co-founder and CEO of Aero Unmanned Systems, which is a drone solution startup leading commercial segments in India with its vertically integrated end-to-end solutions. Vipul has a background in aerospace engineering and has been very active with policy suggestions and industrial committees for the drone ecosystem in India. He is also the Vice President of the Drone Federation of India. AUS, which is the Aero Unmanned Systems, originated from IIT Kanpur in 2013 and established itself to be the leader in unmanned segment in India by continuously setting new technological benchmarks. A is currently also serving the SVA MITA project and multiple private enterprises in the mining and infrastructure sector. May I invite people to come to the stage, please. So just to let know, each of the panel discussions go in different ways. You saw a firefox from our Dr. Kota Harinarayana, one style, another is the Tapasvi style. We will do a moderator of both of them. So basically, I thought it will be ideal to we have introduced the moderators and introduced the panelists too. So maybe an opening remark by the moderators for 5 minutes of relevance to the topic we are talking, but their own impressions and things on this. And then we can have a bit of a, when everybody finishes 5 minutes, we'll have a question and answer initiated by the moderator, and then, of course, by the audience. After every panelist speaks, if you also want to ask a couple of questions, you are welcome to do so. I hope we'll have a great deliberations from this committee. Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. C.S. Sharma. You can go ahead with the race. You can sit here and talk.
Can I use PPT or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have got one PPT.
Yeah, he's putting it.
So, very good afternoon to all of you. And first of all, let me introduce my organization. I am representing Quality Council of India. Quality Council of India is an autonomous body which was set up by Government of India in 1997 through a cabinet note. And as you know that Quality Council of India is a national accreditation body for product and services which are being handled in India. So we have got 5 different boards which are catering to different needs of the stakeholders. NABCB, which is working for certification bodies for product and services. NABL, which is a accreditation board for laboratory and testing facilities. Then we have got one board called NABH for hospitals. We have got other board for education and training. So total, we have got 5 boards. One board is for promotions and training purpose. So Quality Council of India is basically responsible to maintain the quality assurance system in different industries and service sector pertaining to global equivalence. So as you know that right now entire country is talking about speed and scale. So when we talk about speed and scale, one of the primemost factor is also comes with speed and scale is quality. So in every aspect of our life, quality is very, very important. So I would say that Quality Council of India is a formal custodian of maintaining and assuring quality in entire country. We are operating a lot of schemes, and we are working with 46 different ministries to maintain quality assurance system to provide conformity assessment solutions. And as far as our recent initiatives are concerned, we are working with NTRO for cybersecurity domain. For example, in the recent past, we have a number of threats with respect to cybersecurity aspects. So we are working with NTRO. In 2019, we signed a MOU with the DGCA, and we decided that we have to create a quality assurance systems for drones in the country. And we came out with the schemes after signing this MOU. And as you are aware that in 2021, those drone rules were relaxed and new drone rules were published in 2021. And in line to those drone rules, can we see? Okay. So here we can see that drone rules were published in 2021, and aligned to those drone rules, we came out with a certification scheme for US or drones. And after that, the latest version of the certification scheme was published in 26th of Jan 2022, and that scheme has been notified in the Gazette notification of MOCA. So this is the current status of this certification scheme for drones. So how a certification scheme is being developed in QCI? So that is a indicative slide that needs come from either from industry or government or regulator, and on the basis of those needs, Quality Council of India creates multi-stakeholder committees. We have got steering committee, we have got certification committee, and we have got technical committee. Technical committee is responsible to define the certification requirement in terms of technical requirements. Certification committee is responsible to define the conformity assessment procedures, how certification will be done, what will be the certification process, how audits will be conducted. So all those requirements are being defined by certification committee. And steering committee is overall responsible for supervision and monitoring of the scheme. Once those scheme documents are being developed by technical experts, those are being routed through these committees, and those are being published for the common man through our website, and anybody can give their expert comments, and once those comments are being reviewed and addressed adequately, then the scheme is being published. So that same route was followed in the case of US certification scheme, and in Jan itself, the second version of drone certification scheme was published through all this entire consultation process. Now, this is a very, very important slide. Any manufacturer who want to manufacture or assemble drones in the country, mandatorily they have to apply for the type certification. This is a mandatory requirement. When I say mandatorily, this need to be routed through a DSP portal. They have to fill up a D1 form. Once this D1 form is being filled up, the certification body, which is being approved by Quality Council of India, has to take care of that D1 form, and within 60 days, they are supposed to issue a statement of conformity. It means that any manufacturer who is manufacturing a drone or assembling a drone, they have to take a type certificate for their model. This is a mandatory requirement. And when I say that they have to take this type certificate, it means it needs to be routed through a predefined structured process. They have to apply in the form of D1 at DSP portal. And these are the different stages. There is an entire system is being placed for entire processing of this D1 form. And within 60 days, they are supposed to get this certificate, or either this form may be rejected by certification body if the compliance is not being evident. So here we can see that there are total 10 different criteria are being defined in the schemes. Some of them are generic in nature, which are applicable in case of any type of drones, irrespective of the category. And there are certain requirements related to performance of the drones, then power plant, which as you are aware that battery is very, very important, critical part of any US system. So there are certain requirements are being addressed in terms of registration of battery or in terms of their safety and performance. Similarly, we have different requirements for structures of the drone. We have different requirements in terms of construction and materials of the drone. And there are data link, for example, communication purpose, this data link is need to be used. So how those data links should be endorsed in terms of global practices or in terms of regulations. So all those requirements are being addressed in US scheme. So like in this slide, we can see that there are total 10 criteria with this, which includes all the critical aspects of a US system, which includes not only hardware part, but software part as well. Right now, NT is not part of the certification scheme, but I suppose within next 6 months or 1 year, this may be included in the certification criteria. These are some indicative figures. Till date, we have received more than 70 applications for certification. And most of the applications we have received in the small category of drones. Right now, the rejection rate of those applications, we can see a decline trend because now manufacturers are understanding the requirement of the certification schemes. They are preparing their documentation. They are implementing those requirements. So there are certain improvements. And this is a website portal of Quality Council of India. Anybody who is interested to know about this US certification scheme, they can go through this portal, they can write to us, and we are supposed to reply all your technical queries in terms of certification requirements within a couple of days. Now, what we want in future, we would like to include certain additional requirement. For example, BV laws, we would like to include our certification scheme. We would like to include day and night operations, and we would like to include autonomous drones in our next version of our scheme. So these are the certain future initiatives which we are looking for. And I would request all the stakeholders who are present here that you can actively contribute to development of these features in our certification schemes. And it's open invitation to you that you can give your suggestions, you can come to our committees, and whatever the value addition you can get, certainly you are invited for that. So this is all about what QCI is doing in terms of drone certification. And if there are further questions or some clarifications, I will be ready for that. I will be okay for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a total clarity on what is the process now, because quite a few of us, particularly some of them who are in the startups, don't understand the whole process well. You have given an excellent overview of all this. And as you are aware, the whole country is waiting for drone certification. You yourself mentioned 70 people are waiting. The queue is going to be only much more than this. So I have a practical suggestion, more not because of a head of a panel, but generally as a person who is involved in things, is that you see, in the initial stages, as we are evolving, instead of considering that you are an inspection agency and we are somebody who is coming to you for getting our things certified, if there is a participatory environment between us and you, of course not compromising the standards and the things that you think are important, we could participate in your whole process. For example, if you see that there is a power plant that is lacking in terms of certain things, a battery, we could together see what best could be done on that. And as you are aware, the three important things, the battery, the propeller and the motors, invariably are the three elements which India still imports. We don't have an appropriate Indian reliable agency. So these three apart, the rest of them, I think all of us are focusing on the rest of the drone components and systems from design to manufacture should be Atmanirbhar, Indian done way. And as we mature over the next 2-3 years on these three components, I presume we will be there, become a totally indigenous thing. I see that there's a tremendous opportunity for this country to be a leader in the drones technology, because we are a very matured aerospace industry domain. We have very matured electronic controls people in the country. So we very much look forward to. If anyone has any questions to him, please we can take a couple of questions. Okay, if we don't have, yes?
Yeah, so I have a question on the certification, the standards. So BIS is also doing something. So how do you two relate to each other? Because I am working with Professor Omkar's committee on the BIS standards. So that and QCI, how do you interact?
So as all of know that BIS is the national standard body, and whatever the standards they are developing, we have to take cognizance of those standards. And once any standard is being released by BIS, whether drones or components related to drones, QCI will take cognizance and we will adopt or we will accept that standard. That is for sure.
Hi, sir. This is Setu from Boeing. I have one question related to the quality assurance scheme, what you proposed, shared. Like how in the commercial world we have FAA regulation requirements in order to validate during the quality assurance processes, like 14 CFR Part 25 requirements. Is there any regulation requirements is being developed towards US systems?
Can you elaborate your question, please?
Like in the commercial world, commercial aircrafts, for example, in FAA, we do have 14 CFR Part 25 requirements, which typically validated during the quality assurance process to issue the type certification for the commercial aircrafts. So in the similar lines, as you proposed or showcased the quality scheme to issue the statement of conformity or type certification, is there any regulation requirements as such which drives the type design of UAS systems?
So right now, our scope of our certification scheme is limited to US certification scheme, which is applicable to drones or US systems. But definitely QCI is looking for certain other avenues or other aspects where we see a emergent need for quality interventions, whether it's related to product certification or system certification or process certification. For example, within the drone sector itself, we are also looking for those certification of drone pilots through a internationally equivalent certification system, which is routed through ISO 17024, which is a globally accepted standard. So similar type of interventions we can think of. This is a good suggestions, and we can think of for this type of intervention.
Yeah, there's the last question from
Yeah.
the gentleman
Thank you.
up.
Thank you. Can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for a very detailed and very clear presentation for the US certification scheme, which is QCI is proposing. My question is that out of the 70 people who have applied for certification, can you throw some light on what kind of issues have you seen which we are not, in case you have rejected any of them? What kind of issues did you face, and can you throw some light on that, please?
Yeah, I suppose this is a very, very relevant question. And since the scheme is initial phase of implementation, we could see a high rate of rejection during initial months of launching this scheme. And the core, I would say, key reasons behind these rejections are understanding the specific requirement of the schemes among manufacturers, how those requirements which are being defined in the certification schemes need to be implemented in terms of documentations, in terms of certain tests. For example, battery is biggest challenge which we could see in today's scenario. Then getting this ETA certificate from WPC, that is again one of the pain point which we could see. And I understand that the documentation is again a weak area where manufacturer has to implement certain additional efforts to prepare a good set of documentation at the initial stage itself, because if we do that exercise in the initial phase, then I would say our certification cycle will be very, very smooth. So I could see three basic challenges. One is documentation, second is battery or power plant related issues, and third is this ETA certificate for communications. So these three are the, I would say, core areas where more efforts need to be done. QCI is working a lot of efforts. We are in continuous touch with MITI, and ICAT is sitting there. So they are doing a lot of efforts in terms of battery testing. So we are working very, very hard to resolve those issues. And I'm sure with your support, we'll be able to reduce this rejection data very, very shortly.
Thank you. Due to paucity of time, I would like to take this as the last question. It's over. Now let me go to the next speaker, Mr. Sunil Motwani from MathWorks. May I request him to talk, please?
Thank you, Dr. Padmanabhan. Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed my pleasure and honor to be sitting amongst the elite panelists here and to talk about UAS ecosystem as I see evolving in India, the trends that we see, the future that we see. First of all, let me thank Mr. Sharma for giving a very nice overview of the certification process for drones in India. And since the time DJCA came out with its first set of regulations, I think sometime in December 2018, we have seen we have seen operation of drones becoming legalized in some ways for non-military operations. And what we have seen happening in India, and of course, you all would have heard about figures of UAS market size, what it stands today and what the expected growth is. There are different, figures quoted by different market, research agencies, but everyone is very, very, categorical in saying that this is a high growth industry, and the CAGR expected is in double digits for next 10 years. And since the DGCA came out with those regulations, we are seeing a big growing market in India. And the market players include the manufacturers of drones, manufacturers of subsystems that make the drones and the components that make the drones, and also a big, huge interest in applications of the drones, especially in non-military area. And today, during the course of this conference, you would have heard some presentations on some very interesting applications of drones in India, especially related to agriculture, related to healthcare, related to planning of electric grid systems. And of course, very commonly understood application of UASs in the area of mapping and surveillance. Okay, so there are great emerging applications that are coming up, and in future we would see many more complex applications coming up. Okay, few areas where we see really great usage of drones that would happen going forward is in the area of high cost asset monitoring and management. Okay. Very big players in India are now investing in UAS systems and investing money to find out new application areas. We also have a startup, some of the panelists from startups, we see a very thriving startup ecosystem in India. Academia is putting in a lot of efforts to support these startups for nurturing or for coming out with new ideas in terms of applications of drone technology and taking those ideas to realities in some ways. So what does this introduce? As challenges or engineering challenges for engineers working on either designing the components for these systems or designing the vehicle itself or designing the application or the mission that the vehicles are supposed to accomplish. I believe there are 2 or 3 important challenges that are thrown at us as engineers. The number one challenge, is when you are building a vehicle or when you are building a mission, you need multi-domain expertise. It's not a single-dimensional engineering application. It's a multi-dimensional engineering application. To build the vehicle itself, you need combination of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, and data science specialists today. Right? Because there's a lot of autonomy being built, there's a lot of AI being used, so you need expertise from data science. You need engineers to understand data science and implement those in their systems. So, first challenge, multi-domain expertise is required to build the vehicles or the applications that these vehicles are going to serve. Number 2 is as the applications become more and more complex, you need to look at, and we are talking about UAS, right? We are talking about system. We are not talking about single vehicle. There could be multiple vehicles interacting with each other to accomplish a certain mission. Okay. So how do you kind of look at the system level challenges that would come up when you try to integrate all these systems together to accomplish a given mission that you need to accomplish with these UAS systems. So that's where I think a tool vendor like us, MathWorks, could come in and help the engineers address some of these challenges that we are going to see going forward. And how we are trying to help? We are trying to help engineering talents by giving them a platform where they can do a complete system level simulation of a UAS, which is being built for accomplishing a given mission. So there are 5 or 6 steps to that, right? The number one step is to design and simulate in the virtual environment before you build a prototype. Number 2 is to develop the mission and see whether your design is good enough to accomplish that mission. Your algorithms are good enough to accomplish those mission. The third step is to take those algorithms and deploy them on the real vehicle. Fourth is to execute the mission in the virtual world and see whether it's accomplishing all the functional requirements of that mission or not. And then finally, when you actually go on the field and execute the mission and the data that you collect, how to use that data for future diagnostic purposes. So we have two platform products, Matlab and Simulink, that help you do the simulation right from designing simple components and subsystems to designing a vehicle to designing or seeing a system level performance in the virtual world of multiple vehicles coming together and accomplishing the mission that for which you were designing this application. Okay. So we are trying to address that solution in that way. The second one is how do we get people and how do we skill people in this area? So we are collaborating with academia, we are collaborating with incubation centers in academia which provide access of our tools to budding startups who have new ideas in these emerging areas, who have excellent ideas about what applications for which US systems can be used going forward. Okay. The final challenge or the future trend, and that's something that the world is looking forward to, is how some of these unmanned systems interact with manned systems flowing in the air, or flying in the air. And when the manned systems and unmanned systems have to coexist in the air, what are the challenges that it would throw up? Especially when the unmanned systems have greater level of autonomy built into them. And that's where agencies who certify and systems like FAAs or EASAs of the world are looking at how we certify AI built into some of these autonomous systems. And that's a big emerging future challenge, and I'm sure we together, the engineering community will figure out how do we address those challenges going forward. With that, I would like to conclude my initial remarks, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. We're running a bit of time lag. If maybe we can just take one question. If somebody has anything important.
During the discussions in the BAS committee, we find that the software that they use, it is the directly downloaded software from the internet and all. Most of the people are using that. Now, with respect to when you're talking about safety, security and all that, how do you think that, MathWorks could help them at least gain that knowledge that this can be validated, and what about your, how can you get that information to them or help them out?
We would be happy to interact with any agencies who's trying to work in this area of software certification for UAS systems. As you know, for commercial aircrafts, there are existing standards like DO standards for software and hardware compliance, and we would be happy to interact with any standards agencies which is working in this area of software compliance for US systems, and the person who has asked the question actually has expertise in this area. So we would be happy to work with you also, sir, to see what could be the contribution that we from MathWorks can make in that direction along with the industry.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Madhusudan Joshi from ICAT. You could talk, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Padmanabhan, and thank you, SAE, for providing this opportunity to talk a bit about certification. I have a short presentation, but before that, I would like to speak a bit about taking forward from what Mr. Sharma has just mentioned. For a for an emerging technology and also for its sustenance, there are two important aspects. One is the regulatory aspect and another is the standardization aspect. So as DGCA and QCI work towards the regulatory framework setting up for the UAVs, BIS, so I am more of representing the BIS committee, which the gentleman has just mentioned. So BIS is the national body for setting up the regulations for various topics. So UAV committee 14.1 is one of the committees which is meant for this purpose. So I am actually, convening the working group 4, which is responsible to set up the standards for performance, safety, and security of the UAVs. I come from an automotive background because the only word which is common here is vehicles. So I will just try to explain to you the simile of what happened in automotive about 18 odd years back in 2005. There was not a, so to say, big regulatory or a standardization framework in automotive till 2005. In 2005, India started suddenly visiting United Nations, and there's a committee called Working Party 29, which is responsible for global standardization because Europe is the benchmark country for setting up automotive standards. So India decided, Ministry of Transport in India decided to adopt the standards on as-is basis, various bases from Europe. So our director at that time, Mr. Bhanot, was taking this initiative forward on the behalf of MORTH. And we used to ask him a question that if the standards are already published in Europe, what is the purpose of converting all those into Indian standards and copying the same data, doing a donkey job, and then, then replicating the same thing here? So he used to say, please do it. You will understand the importance of this in years to come. So what happened, we started copying those standards, started doing what exactly used to be done in Europe, and the customers used to get irritated because there were BMWs, Audi, those are and they used to, kind of, oh, you are going to test a Audi vehicle? It is already being certified in Europe. But, after 17 and 18 years of working on these standards, now Indian automotive fraternity has a capability that we are able to design, evolve our own standards, which are actually adopted. Very recently, we have made a standard for our ISO committee, ISO TC 204, which happens to be a committee on intelligent transportation system, where we have developed the standard, which is the first standard in the world, which is meant for these public announcement systems and LED destination boards which are being fitted in the city buses. There's no international standards for it. But ISO committee has adopted that Indian standard as an international standard. So this is how the capability building happens. So what we are trying to do here is, we are trying to set up a standardization framework in BIS. We have been struggling to find experts because this committee started way back, I think, if I remember, somewhere in 2019. So far, we have not been able to progress for significantly on this. We have been trying to do and suggesting some test protocols to QCI. What we would like to do now is to formalize this into an Indian standard, covering the aspects of performance, safety, and security, build it as an Indian standard, and then have a participative approach, as Dr. Padmanabhan has already mentioned, involving industry to help us in finalizing these test protocols in a technologically agnostic way, trying to make it as neutral as possible so that we are able to certify good products at the end of the day. And eventually, since India has already decided to become a drone manufacturing hub by 2030, which I heard from the Prime Minister of India last week in the Drone Mahotsav, then it is very important that our industry, which is actually going to have Make in India kind of thing in drones, should have its own standard, first from the competitiveness point of view, and secondly, from the point of view of the fact that there are certain substandard quality products which are coming from different parts of the world. How do we block them? So we have to have standards up to a certain level in order to block those products, stopping them from coming to India. So I'll take hardly a minute more to introduce, to cover this presentation. So we actually are International Center for Automotive Technology. We are under Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises. We are a national certification body for automotives. This is being set up with an investment of 1,600 crores in the northern part of India. And we actually have helped QCI to evolve various test protocols, which include starting from electromagnetic compatibility to environmental testing, battery testing, which is just mentioned, then testing of acoustics, functional safety, cyber security, flight testing, and other general requirements. So the various standards which are already available, there are certain ISO standards which can be directly deployed as far as UAVs are concerned. So we are actually in a process to identify these set of standards and put them as a part of Indian standard. Similarly, for environmental testing, there are already existing international guidelines, international standards. We don't have to invent anything. We have to try to, you take that information from those standards and put it in our Indian standard. Then we have a very elaborate set of standards available for battery testing, because we are closely working for electric mobility nowadays. So we have a lot of experience with battery testing. So that experience can be, used in, putting up the standard for UAVs batteries. Then we have regulations already existing, standards already existing for acoustic testing. So that can also be worked upon. And guidelines for functional safety, there are a lot of international standards already in place. We have to just, judiciously pick those standards and put them in the Indian standard. Then we have standards on cyber security also existing. We have to identify which are the right ones and try to make it as a part of Indian standard. And the flight testing, since we have no experience at ICAT, so that is the reason I'm requesting that the people from the relevant industry should contribute, come and participate in this BIS committee and help us to formalize the guidelines for flight testing as well. So as I mentioned, there's a committee TD14, which is under Professor Onkar of ISC. So they are already working towards bringing out these standards, and the working group which I am leading is responsible to set up these standards. So we will try to do it as quickly as possible. So our target is that in next 3 months' time, we try to roll out the first draft, which is available in the public domain for people to comment, give constructive comments to build it further and strengthen it. So that will include performance, safety, and security, right? So that is what we plan to do. And once this standard is in place, it will become Indian standards, which can become a part of all different tenders and all the other requirements where drones are required to be procured or exported, and whatever we want to do with them. So this standard can be used as a country-wide standard, as a single standard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have been informed that I believe we are running a bit late. Since the immediate session is going to be a coffee break, I think the participants, if they have any questions, can directly interact with them. With that, I would request Group Captain Stephen to address us. But somebody has passed on a first level of question to you, Stephen, is that I read out that Group Captain Stephen is on deputation to Similak DRDO as the Technology Director for UAV Technology and Airworthiness Certification. So they asked, there seems to be a conflict between QCI and Similak on what their supplementary, complementary roles are. Maybe you would like to address it in this session. Thank you. Please start.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to bridge that gap. But before that, I'll just like to tell you, Similak stands for Center for Military Airworthiness and Certification. So Similak had existed since 1958, predominantly for manned aircraft certification. And they have evolved with HAL and been certifying manned aircraft since ages. It is only since 2012 when DRDO took up development of a male UAV. Similak it was a good decision to get associated with that project, and Similak has evolved with DRDO's ADE, Aeronautical Development Establishment, who developed Rustam 2. And since day one, they have been a part of the design, and the certification process was involved. In 2012, when we got involved, that time STANAC 4761 was in very nascent stage. JARAS, EASA, they were all in the process of consolidating their airworthiness criteria for UAVs. That was the time when Similak had got involved, and because nothing was there available in, on a platter to certify a UAV, and if you apply a manned standard to an unmanned aircraft, then you are compromising on size, weight, and power requirement. And UAV predominantly requires higher endurance, size, weight optimized systems. So something had to be done, and that is when a route to certification document was evolved with experience of manned aircraft, tailored made and tailored down to the requirement of a UAV. And we evolved with development of Rustam 2, and we developed our experience in certifications. So Rustam 2 got certified LRU wise and followed all the process akin to a manned aircraft, most of it, and every sortie used to get a flight clearance note and the test points defined like a aircraft. But yes, that is a male class of UAV, which is a bigger UAV, a 2.5 ton UAV. Now, when you look at the other aspect, what I'm trying to bridge here is the smaller UAVs. If you look at our book, we have a book called DDP Mass, where the recent edition, which was released in 2021, had a chapter 6 on UAVs for the first time. And there, we are talking only about UAVs which are above 100 kgs. And below 100 kgs so far, because we didn't have so much of experience in certifying or getting involved with that, we didn't venture into that area. So what QCIs are dealing with mostly are what we understand are smaller drones. And our certification is more on military and for a segregated airspace. And we do want to get certification for flying the military aircraft in unsegregated airspace. So that is when we will try to get merged with QCI's requirement or DGCA's requirement. But right now, when Similak is certifying, this is certifying for flying in military airspace, that is segregated airspace for military applications. But yes, the standard follows, like one gentleman over there asked about FAR 22 standards or something. When you follow NATO STANAC 4761, you'll find most of the requirements are akin to FAR 22. But following it blindly will result in heavy systems. We must understand one thing: UAVs are meant for specific role, and they fly for endurance. They fly to carry certain payloads, and they are meant to do a particular job. So just applying a FAR standard may not be possible. But yes, most of the things, the safety aspects are taken care from the FAR systems. So that is how we have evolved. So we do have a system in place in Similak. We are coming out with ACC, that is airworthiness certification criteria for bigger UAVs, that is large UAVs. And we are also going to form a kind of a joint workmanship with probably QCI and DGCA to look into certification of smaller UAVs as it comes. And definitely we would also try to venture into getting across to unsegregated airspace flying, whatever is the requirement as it comes. So that's about Similak. So I'd like to take any questions. Sir.
Thank you. Yes, just one question. Yeah.
So, just as a way to be aware of what is the state of standards being developed, and so could you give us links or information where to access the existing standards? This is to all the three standard making bodies represented on the stage.
Sir, we have a book called DDP Mass 2021, which is available on the DRDO site. And we also, that is basically a procedure and framework policy. It's a policy document. And thereafter we have another document which is called IMTAR version 1, where it specifies the procedure to be followed and the requirement, like all the classification of UAVs, various UAVs classification and what they require to be certified, what all systems required to be certified. So those details are there, sir. So in IMTAR, if you look at chapter 2B, that exclusively deals with UAV. The only thing which is left over is very specific ACC, that is airworthiness criteria, certification criteria. So those numbers and those things are under development. But to follow a procedure for military airworthiness, if you're looking for a military airworthiness, and if you want to develop a system, so which weight class, what speeds, all those things are given in that. And if you follow those subsequent chapters, you have a procedure in place what is to be done to get the aircraft certified.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, with that, our last speaker is Mr. Vipul Singh from CRO Unmanned Systems. Invariably in the family, the last child always gets lesser prominent. Since we are definitely running out of time, I would like you to hold on to 5 plus or minus 1 more minute from the screen. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll try to do the justice with the time. So instead of jumping into introducing myself, all of you who are aware about the drone space must be aware about us and our work. So I'll skip that part. Because this is a management institute and also we are talking about standards, so it's important that we first visit the background of it. So when we started our journey in 2013, there was no one who was making drones for any commercial application, no civil applications across the world. So we wrote down step by step what all can happen with the drones. And at that time, even these open source autopilots, which we are heavily relying upon, Ardu Pilot and PX4 community, was also at a very, very early stage. 10 flights you do, 2 will crash. That was the stability of these autopilots. So we started from that era. So there are 2 ways if you want to learn swimming. There are 2 ways to learn swimming. One, you go to a swimming pool with a good instructor, you get full technique, you take 2 months to learn swimming and you do your first crossover. Another way is that the way I learned, I am born and brought up in Varanasi. You go, one boatman will throw you 3-4 times, you'll drink water, you'll vomit and you'll start swimming. So that is second way of learning swimming. The second way helps you survive in any situation. The first one may get you an Olympic medal as well. So that is why I brought this analogy is that for drone ecosystem, we need the best of both. We also need to survive through all the different ecosystems and problems of our, let's say, economy and very, very fast evolving space. But we also need to make sure that ultimately we win the Olympic medal, otherwise we'll just keep swimming and having fun here. So when I say Olympic medal, we are not competing with ourselves. We are not competing and we are not trying to establish some benchmark for India. We are trying to compete with best of the worlds like Germany, US, especially our neighbor in the north, which is dumping all the good material in India. So why I wanted to bring that analogy is that when we reached from 2013, when we reached 2016, when we started flying these drones, the first drone ban came into picture. So all the efforts went into vain because the policy paralysis started. Okay. We realized that the same thing will happen which has happened to other technological fields in India where policy led to such a slow growth that even after having all the talent, we'll miss the bus. So we realized that there are 4 pillars on which we need to work on an overall system. Now I am talking from the position of Drone Federation of India, where Drone Federation of India came into existence. 4 people sitting in a coffee shop, including me, decided that we'll have our own industry body because right now in India, no one knows about this subject. And if we leave it to those people, this will again become a policy paralysis. So Drone Federation of India was formed between 4 people, just as a joke that let's do it. Okay. So what we realized, there are 4 pillars we need to work upon. One is the product. We need to really make good products from India. Let it be a component or an entire system or even a software. It has to be globally competitive product. We need to have people to build these products. So we need to have skill around, knowledge around to do that, because without fundamental knowledge, we are going to just fool ourselves. That is what happens generally in academia. We learn a lot of theoretical things. We have also learned very complex aircraft design, simulation, and everything else in our academia during the graduation program. But correlating that with the practical and calibrating that with the practical is what was missing. Then came the process. Any industry thrives on the process standardization. So I think drone industry is slowly moving towards that. We have still not touched the process part of it. And then comes the ultimately the people, product, process, and the policy, the last part. If there is no environment to foster all these 3, ultimately no matter how good your people, product, and process are, the business doesn't grow. So that's where we realize that standardization is very, very important. And if we don't bring standards, drones will fall like flies everywhere, because people will just pick up whatever is available at the lowest cost without validating the reliability of particular component, and they'll end up assembling a drone. Everything flies is called a drone, whether it does 1,000 flights or 100 flights, no one will care. And any unsafe or any incident happens which creates a safety issue or a security issue will bring the entire policy against the industry, right? So that's how the whole idea of bringing a regulation which is in favor of using drones and also a standard which is required to ensure reliable drones came into picture. And I'm sure over a period of time, a lot of processes will also come into picture. So why I brought that point out, because I had only 5 minutes. I can talk very long about the whole standards, how we can solve some problems which were discussed during the Q&A sessions. This is basically for all the management students and all the people and dignitaries involved here, is that we need to have both a very, very precise approach, but also a rebellious attitude, because we have a wonderful opportunity to make sure that we are not playing by the rules of we are not playing the game set on the rules set by others. Drone is a very, very new industry. No other country has set up a standardization technique or a very evolved operational procedures and regulations when it comes to drone for civilian use. So I believe India is among the top countries which has come up with a quality certification standard for civilian application drones. We have to be very fast in implementing it, but we have to be also very open and agile to basically calibrate it, because there will be continuous changes required, validations and changes required, so that we set the rules, we win the game, and we play the game. It's not the other way which has happened with the rest of the technologies in India. So the 3 things which I want to again conclude with is, one, that we need to keep leading the sector globally, not only in India. 2, we need to be agile but also very precise in our technique, so that we don't just do jugaad and integration and development, we also do it through an engineering approach. And at the end of the day, 3, we have to really, really be rebellious. So for all those management people, the moment you take the responsibility to change anything, the game starts. So I believe anything which we have complaints for, because we had a lot of complaints in 2016, we realized that we'll keep complaining if we don't pick it up in our hands and solve it. So there are so many things which needs to be done for this industry. We are yet sitting at less than $1 billion business opportunity. The business opportunity in India itself will cross more than $15 billion. I know people will have different opinion on these numbers. I can help you out with the calculations, how we have arrived at it. And the global industry is definitely going to be more than 100 billion, because every sector you pick up, which is a backbone of our economy, will be enabled by drones. And it is happening in India itself. So this was the lesson, that we have a lot of problems to solve in this industry. It's not quality and standards is the first thing. There is a lot of evolution which will happen. All of us together, the experienced people, not so experienced people, and also the new entrepreneurs and people who are studying in colleges, they'll have to work together to make sure that we maintain our lead. Rest the technical and tech heavy part we can discuss over the coffee, because I can see a lot of people already meditating. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipul. I think I would really think that a session of this important, should have had more time, but obviously when we do a 2-day workshop, trying to save time and trying to work on it. However, a lot of pertinent points he brought out, and I, as wearing the hat of an entrepreneur, getting into the drone business, much of what you said is all in our mind, as we go along, because we are always thinking we will make a drone, and in 50 out of 1 incident out of 50, if it drops, then immediately, like the A320, I think people will say, no, stop all drone manufacture, drone design in India. So we need to be complacent, but we can't be thinking only about that. So thank you very much, all my panelists. It's been a wonderful experience. All of you gave your own, background and your own, experiences. I really appreciate it. As he rightly said, maybe we're just going for tea, so you could have an opportunity to talk to all of them. All the very best, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan, and thanks to the entire panel for interesting discussion covering multiple facets of autonomous systems, starting from design, development, productize, certification, and then operational, covering our operational aspects. So as a small token of appreciation from SAE, I would request Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan to honor the panelists with mementos. I invite Sri C.S. Sharma to come and receive the memento. Now I invite Sri Sunil Motwani to receive the memento. I request Dr. Madhusudan Joshi to accept the memento. May I invite Group Captain Stefan to receive the memento. Hello. I request Sri Vipul Singh to accept the memento. So I request Damodaran Subramanian, Chair SAE Bangalore section, to present a memento to moderator Dr. M.K. Padmanabhan. Thanks once again to the entire panel. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's break time. We will get back here at 4 o'clock after